Welcome to the only course you need for you to learn SQL and how to work with databases like Postgres, MySQL, and many others. By the end of this course, you will master these topics and become job ready or advance your career. You'll be able to put these skills on your resume to truly make yourself stand out and be valued across many industries around the world. Why? You see, data is everywhere, and it is the most valuable asset in the world. All the top companies need people that can work with data. That's where this course comes in. Unlike most tutorials out there, this course encompasses many fields working with many databases. Whether you want to get into the tech industry, you're a mobile or web developer, a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, a business analyst, even sales and marketing, or you have your own company. Any role that requires you to work with data will need to know this valuable skill, that is SQL. How to interact with databases, analyze, and use data. Fun fact, SQL is actually more popular than most programming languages. Here's the thing though, there are many courses on this topic, right? This course is very different though because of these three reasons. Let's build the suspense. Alright, here we go. 1. In this course, you will learn to work with not just one, but many databases like MySQL, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, Redis, and so much more. No prior programming or technical experience is necessary. We take you from absolute zero to mastery, and we go above and beyond to not just teach you SQL commands, but to teach you advanced techniques, best practices, database design, and how to think about performance, security, and scalability. 2. This course is taught by actual professionals who have experience and have worked with databases for some of the largest companies in the world. Mo and I used to work together, and Mo is a superstar when it comes to SQL. He has built software for the European Union, launched products for 5 Fortune 500 companies, and has even consulted at Google. And me, I'm Andre. I've worked on enterprise-level apps for large tech firms both in Silicon Valley and Toronto, and have also taught others tech skills that got them into big companies like Google. By having both of us teach, you get to see different perspectives and learn from two engineers, as if we're working at a company together. 3. We're gonna have some fun here. The course starts off with you getting hired at Keiko Corp to investigate their recent database breach. Because we believe in learning by doing, you'll be doing tons of real-life assignments and exercises along the way, and eventually get to the point where you can help Keiko Corp solve their mystery by looking at their databases and analyzing hidden information. Our goal is that everyone has fun and is successful after completing the course, not bore you to death. Learning SQL and how to work with data is one of the best decisions you can make for your career. So when's the best time to start? That's today. Have a look at the course outline in the next video to see if this course is right for you. We'll see you inside. Woohoo! We're about to start the course. However, it's always a good idea to have a look at the roadmap of what we're about to learn and the steps we're going to take so that we know where we're ending up, so you have a clear path to success. So let's see what this course will look like for you. Now, before I lay out the course outline, I do want to show you the thing that most students say is the best part of the course. Right here. Our online private community of over 300,000 professionals. We have students chatting here every day, helping each other out, solving problems together, doing challenges, and just talking about the latest and greatest in the tech world. This is an optional resource for you to use, so you can have back and forth conversation with other students and myself and Mo, so you feel like you're part of a classroom. I'm on there chatting every day, and this way you feel like you aren't doing the course on your own, and you have others pushing you to finish. Okay, I got sidetracked. Back to the course outline. Now the course starts off with a big data breach at Keiko Corp, and they hired you to look at their databases and figure out what happened and who stole this important data. And that's going to set the stage for the rest of the course. Now the first part is the history of data. We're going to learn about what a database is, what are the types of databases that we can have, and how a company like Amazon might want to have databases instead of pen and paper or Excel sheets to keep track of their customers, their products. Then we go straight into SQL fundamentals. What is SQL? How to do a query? What are tables? Learning about primary key, foreign keys. Learning about OLTP versus OLAP databases. These are the basics that we need to know to truly understand SQL. Then we get into the important part, the environment setup. We want to make sure that we use professional tools that you're going to encounter in your professional career. We're going to be using tools like Valentina Studio, installing databases like PostgreSQL, which is one of the most popular databases out there, so that you know how to set up your machine, how to create a database, how to use tools to make queries using SQL. And don't worry, we provide videos for Mac, Linux, and Windows users so that we accommodate everybody to make sure that everybody is able to work and follow this course. Next is the SQL deep dive. This is where we go beyond the basics and learn about things like functions, aggregate functions, filtering data, using comparison operators, working with dates and different data types, and learning about joins, doing different types of joins to combine different tables, an important topic that you always encounter when it comes to SQL. As if that wasn't hard enough, and don't worry, I say hard, but we will guide you every step of the way. We get into even more advanced SQL because we don't want to just cover the basics. We want to get you job ready here. This advanced SQL part is going to talk about things like indexes to improve performance of your queries, about using subqueries, looking at things like partition by, order by, group by. Lots of advanced topics that most other courses don't cover. Then we go to the next part, even more exciting, one of my favorite parts. And this is all about database management. What happens when you're in charge of a database? How do you set up a database in an organization? How do you assign roles to different employees that are going to be using the database, setting up privileges, granting privileges, learning about the data types and how you're going to set up the columns and tables, learning about backups, how to restore a database. Again, things that are going to take you from just a junior to somebody that truly understands databases and is comfortable working with them. This is a really fun part. And I know I say this about every section, but right after that, we have another fun section, which is the database design. And this is all about how to design data. Because in order to work with databases, you need to not just throw a bunch of data to it, but you need to actually design it so that it is optimized, it works properly. We're going to learn about system design, top-down design, bottom-up design, and how to really take charge of the relational model to make sure that you design the databases using the best practices in mind. This is one of those topics that you might learn when you're doing your computer science degree, but you won't find anywhere else on the internet. All right, and after all of that, if that wasn't enough, you now have the tools to actually solve the mystery, the data breach at Keiko Corp. Once you've learned all these topics, we're going to go back to the mystery. And now you're going to get access to Keiko Corp's databases, and using all that you've learned in the previous sections, we're going to give you clues and you're going to try to solve the mystery yourself so that you become the hero of the day. But don't worry, along the way in all the previous sections, we have tons of exercises that you're going to do to make sure that you're not just watching us, but you actually get to interact with data, actually work with things, because without practice, we won't really learn anything. So lots of exercises, but this is the final big piece that I think you're really, really going to love. Next up, once we've solved that mystery, we feel good about ourselves, we want to take a high-level overview of the whole database landscape. We're going to talk about things like scalability, about sharding, about replication, backups. What does distributed versus centralized databases mean? How do we secure a database? How do things like SQL injection work? How to store passwords safely? And then also talk about important topics in the industry, like relational databases versus NoSQL, Postgres versus MongoDB. We're going to talk about things like new SQL, about other databases like Elasticsearch, like S3 object storage, and how they differ and how they might be able to work alongside relational databases. We then have some bonus sections for those that really want to expand their horizons. and get into the world of data engineering, where we talk about things like machine learning, how data engineering and tools like Hadoop, Spark, Kafka might be used in a different way to analyze data, to create machine learning models. These are different types of databases that are being used for different industries. But at the end of the day, they are still databases that work with data. We then learn about a database that I think is extremely useful and you're going to encounter in your career, and that is Redis. It's a key value storage, a memory storage that is used very often for things like caching. It's an important topic, and we added here as a bonus for those that are extra curious and want to learn about different types of databases. Finally, there's some extra bits in there that we throw things like how does a database actually connect to a web app that uses Node.js? As you can see, there's lots to cover. And we try to cover a big landscape because the database landscape is big. And we want to make sure that you can connect the dots and you understand the whole picture. I promise you, we're going to make it fun along the way. By the end of it all, this is all going to make sense and you're going to truly understand the power of SQL and how to work with databases. We're going to take you from zero to mastery. Okay, enough talk. Let's get started and let's start learning. Hello! All right, I have some bad news. I know I started super excited, but this story begins with a bit of a downer. You see, you just got hired by Keiko Corp, one of the fastest growing tech giants in Silicon Valley, and they have just encountered a data breach. Somebody has stolen their trade secrets. Somebody accessed their databases and stole important information that they cannot get out there to the world. Now they're afraid that this information is going to go somewhere on a black market and their whole company is going to be ruined. I know, not an exciting way to start a course, is it? Anyway, back to the story. You've just been hired by this guy over here. His name is Bruno, and he has the perfect hair. Now, Bruno is freaked out a little bit because he has no idea who stole this data, but he needs to get it back now. He heard that you're the expert, so he wants you to solve this right away. Hold on a second, hold on. How are you supposed to do this? You barely have any information. Well, luckily for you, we're going to take you on this journey to learn about databases, to learn about SQL, and try to solve this mystery. So Bruno tells you that, hey, you get access to all this data, the company data, and you'll be able to snoop through the databases to figure out if you see anything strange, maybe any clues that might lead you to who may have done this. And here's the thing. We need to solve this case because Bruno told us there's a big present for us if we're able to help him out. I wonder what the present could be. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. Now, who could have taken this data? You look at their company records and, oh boy, they are a big company. They have a lot of employees. Bruno mentions that it might be one of their employees, but there's hundreds of them. Your challenge is simple. Find out who the bad guy or girl is and solve this mystery. As you start to think about the case, you start remembering some of the things that you learned about databases and SQL, and you fall into a daydream. What is a database? Hold on a second. Maybe you're a smarty pants and you know what a database is, but trust me, in this section, you may learn a thing or two that will surprise you. So no matter what level of experience, just hang in there. Promise we'll get to some really fun stuff. You see, I remember when I first learned about databases and SQL. I couldn't understand how it was all connected with other fields. I would learn about web development or Python or machine learning and had no idea how this SQL or databases really related to those fields. So I want us to always understand the big picture and connect the dots so that the things you learn in this course, you understand why it is useful and how we can use what we learn to do some really interesting things in the world of tech. So what is a database? A database is a collection of data and also a method for us to access and manipulate that data. So let's think about this statement. data is everywhere, right? Data is now the most valuable commodity in the world. Companies that control data, companies that have a lot of data, like Uber, like Alibaba, like Amazon, like Facebook, like Google, are some of the most valuable companies in the world because they have this data. And every day in our world, we produce data, right? Whether it's drones with footages or location data, mobile phone apps, maybe website and web pages, even security cameras. We even have autonomous cars. All those things collect data. And the crazy part is that it's estimated we produce 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every year. And by the way, quintillion means this many zeros. It's a lot of zeros. More data is collected in the past 2 years than the entire human history. So where does all this data go? Does it just get stored in a notebook? Does somebody with pen and paper write it down? No, right? And how can we really have that statement that more data has been generated in the last 2 years than all of human history combined? I mean, sure, there's more humans on Earth, but there's always been the same number of atoms in the universe. You can't just create something out of nothing. When we say that data is being created more and more, the idea is that we're capturing this data. We're saving this data somewhere to be used in some way. Data is something that we as humans create, but without capturing that data or using it, it's completely useless. We use oil to power cars, but if we don't extract that oil, if we don't use that oil, it's completely useless. So we need a way to capture this data. And that's what databases do. They capture this data for us so that we can use it. And here's another crazy number, 44. The digital universe, that is the data that we store, is estimated to be about 44 zettabytes of data. How many zeros? Once again, lots and lots of zeros. So all this data is being captured in a database. Without a database, we wouldn't be able to store this massive amount of data, and more importantly, we can't do some useful things with this data. All those things we saw, like autonomous cars, Instagram, Facebook, Google, without data, none of it would work. So without a database, the ability to query a database, that is to ask database information about its data, it would be impossible for us to do a lot of things. But here is a secret. We mentioned that a database is a collection of data and a way for us to access and manipulate that data. But the secret is that databases aren't anything special. They're just hardware and software. They're just computers. So a database, even though we always see this scary looking cylinders, are just computers. We see images like this all the time representing databases, but they're just computers. It's hardware with software, so that is hardware is the mechanical part, and the software is the actual code on top that allows us to collect and use the data really useful. So in this course, what you'll see is that we do the first step, which is 1, we install software to turn our computer into a database so that we can all practice. And 2, we add data to this database that we create with this software, and then we're going to start using it and analyzing it. Because at the end of the day, a database is exactly this. Just a disk drive, a way for us to store ones and zeros on a computer. And the beautiful thing is that as long as we can install something, we have a computer, something with memory that we can store memory in, and we have a machine, a computer, we can create a database. That is, we can create a database even on a mobile phone, on our desktops, or on our laptops. And that's what we're going to do in the course. But when you see somebody having a database, that's all it means. They have a computer somewhere in the world with software installed for it to store and manipulate that data. Let's take a break, and I'll see you in the next video. Hold on. You didn't learn anything in the last video? Oh boy. You're a tough cookie. Don't worry, we will get into more and more advanced topics later in the course, but let's finish our talk on databases because, again, I want to connect the dots for us. We learned that a database is essentially a computer with some database software on top. In a way, if you've ever used something like Google Sheets or Excel, that's a database, right? It's a way for us to store data, and the Excel software allows us to manipulate that data. In a way, a pen and paper is a database as well. It's not digital, but it's a way for us to store data. Now, the reason we always see these images as databases is because of this. This is called drum memory. And I'll link to this resource so you can read more about it. But back in the day, before we had disk drives, this is how we stored data. It was called drum memory. And as you can see, it's cylindrical. And that's why, for historical reasons, just like our save button on a computer is a floppy disk, this drum memory represents usually databases. But again, in this day and age, they're all just computers. So because a database is just a computer and some software, are there many different types of databases? Well, yeah, there are. I mean, we talked about Excel, right? Essentially, you can use a spreadsheet that you get in Excel to store data. So why don't we just use that for all companies? Why do we need something bigger, something like a database that we're going to talk about? You see, the problem with things like Excel is that eventually you'll get to a point where you have too much data, where an Excel or a spreadsheet just can't handle it. And on top of that, there are many things that databases that we'll learn about in this course will solve, such as making sure that database has integrity. So that is, not everybody can just modify data or delete a database. You can store terabytes of data. You can combine different databases. You can automate steps and use programs to do some really interesting things that you might not be able to do on a spreadsheet. Again, something we'll cover later on in the course. But some of the most popular databases are here. This is just a fraction of the databases out there. Because data is so different, because every company, every user uses data in a different way, we have different databases that do things differently, and each one of these have pros and cons. Now, the beauty is that in this course, we're going to cover some of the main databases and way to interact with them, and later on, we'll learn about the pros and cons so you can decide which database you should use based on your situation. But let's take Keiko Corp as an example. How would Keiko Corp or a company use a database? Well, we mentioned that there's lots of data coming into a company. And a company as big as Keiko Corp has a lot of uses for data. For example, you might have product managers. And product managers always have to know the product that they are working on. For example, drones, they need to get data and learn about the product's health, whether a product is working properly. Learn from data, learn from different information to perhaps improve a product. You have things like marketers. And marketers, you need to find out information from data. You want to analyze business decision, give you insights about how to market a product. Or you might be a web developer, a mobile app developer that creates apps on phone or on the web. And those apps usually have things like user sign-ins or profiles that you need to store somewhere so that when a user comes back onto your app, they're able to reload their information. Or maybe they're playing a game and they need to start the game from their last saved location. You also have things like data analysts or data scientists that understand data, that analyze data of a company and make decisions, such as perhaps even building machine learning models so that a company can serve better information to a user, better products to a user. Analyze different parts of the company to maybe see which employees should get a raise, who to hire. And then you also have data engineers or database administrators. These are the people that actually help set up the databases in a company, update software, install things, make sure that databases are connected with one another. They might use things like Hadoop, Facebook's Presto, Google's BigQuery, Amazon Redshift, and set up all this infrastructure in place for other parts of the companies to use databases. Now, as you can see, there's lots of data. And more importantly, there's lots of different databases, different people in a company that use databases in different way. But hold on a second. All this data is used differently by different people, right? Different operations, different options. Each of these people are interested in different parts of data. And this is why you're taking the course. You're taking this course because you want to hopefully be able to work in any of these fields. And the good news is that even though there's all sorts of databases, even though there's all sorts of jobs, one of the most common ways to work with databases, to ask a database a question, what we call a query, to interact with it, to use that information that is so useful, we use SQL, a way for us to interact or communicate with that database. And that's what this course is all about. Let's take a break and I'll see you in the next video.